Hey, hello everyone. It's Dr. Joseph Capps coming back to you again with another episode of Dancing with the Darkness. This is our weekly podcast and YouTube channel where we unapologetically look at life with CPTSD. I myself, as a CPTSD survivor, polytrauma survivor, operator syndrome, a lot of things going on, but also the true nature of this podcast is the recovery, the healing, and the hope of a future for all of us that have CPTSD and live with it on a daily basis. Trigger warning for you before we get started. We talk about a lot of things that can cause emotional flashbacks. You have to be careful with that. We're going to talk about, raw, unfiltered, the nuances, the circumstances, all the things that no one wants to talk about, even in a clinical setting a lot of times, about what it's like to live with CPTSD and all the things that go with it. So just want to throw that out there. Some housekeeping real quick. I just want to throw a shout out, number one, to our supporters and those of you that are commenting on the videos. It is so valuable to me. If you're living with CPTSD like I am, it's very taxing. It's very hard. And so words of encouragement, letting me know that what I'm saying is resonating with you or it's helping you in some way, that is the whole reason I'm doing this channel. It's part of my healing journey to be able to be transparent and to talk about the struggles and the hope and the healing that I've achieved, but also the tremendous gift is being able to turn my pain into purpose, resonating with my audience, and for it not only making you feel like you're not alone, but also ultimately giving you some hope that you can turn this around and you don't have to live this miserable existence. It doesn't matter how old you are or how late you start. You can have hope and you can turn this around, and you can not just survive, but you can learn how to thrive with CPTSD. So thank you so much for our supporters. For those of you listening for the first time, welcome. I hope and pray that this message today speaks to you in a way that it resonates with you, makes you feel less alone, gives you hope. Please check out our other videos. We cover a lot of things on this channel, a lot of things that I have learned even when I was in therapy myself, that many therapists and counselors do not understand. They don't know how to talk about it. This is not stuff that we can glean from a textbook. There are some good books out there that explain CPTSD, but until you live it and you experience it and understand the daily struggle, that's what this podcast and this channel is about. So God bless all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do us a favor, if you can like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously just to get the word out. There's literally millions of people in the world suffering with CPTSD, and we are just trying to help in any way, shape, or form. Any way that I can help, that's what I'm doing. I have dedicated the rest of my life on this earth as part of my purpose under God to help as many people as I can and to offer encouragement and hope to as many of you as I can. So thank you so much. So last week we talked about, we had a lot of response to last week's video, and it's because I'm starting to talk about some things that are less mainstream. They are less talked about. People don't talk about them as much. Like I said, even in clinical settings, they don't talk about them. And it's because the word complex, when you put it in front of PTSD, it is complicated. It has many layers. It's like an onion that you're peeling back. And so it is a lot. It is difficult in the mental health system for most therapists. That's why I am independent and I'm not licensed. Because I want to do things the right way. I don't want to be tied to income. I don't want to be tied to insurance companies that make you diagnose someone at the first appointment. And also, I want the freedom to give the real hope for healing, which is beyond human understanding, and that is God and His ability to heal us. It is beyond any trauma, beyond anything you've experienced. God is the one that can do more than anything. More than any therapy, more than any medication. And like I've said in the past, if you don't believe in something bigger than your trauma, then you're not going to believe that therapy or pharmacology can help anyway. So you have to understand that we go all the way from the roots of the trauma all the way to current day circumstances and where we are. And so I just wanted to start with that. This is unapologetic and raw. And, you know, last week, like I said, we got a lot of comments on that video because we talked about some very quiet, secretive elements of living with CPTSD that nobody wants to talk about, that most people don't understand what we're dealing with. And today I want to talk about some hidden layers of that onion. There's some key hidden layers of this onion of complex trauma that I want to discuss, so that we can really truly understand how deep this goes, and we can understand that why do we do some of the things that we do? Why do we react sometimes in certain ways? And not only is this for you to understand yourself, but if there's loved ones or support individuals in this field that are watching these videos, I want you to have an intimate understanding as best I can without you experiencing it. I want you to understand these hidden layers. And I've taken some notes, and so you're going to see me kind of pick at my notes a little bit, because I want to make sure that I get all of this out. I want you to understand, and that this is very personal. I'm gonna come at you with a very first person point of view, okay, and my perspective, and hopefully this is going to resonate with many of you. The first thing that I thought about was, you know, a lot of times in our lives we feel like we're literally an actor. We're playing a part in our own life. We might say the right things, we might smile at the right times, but inside there's a hole. There's such a hollowness and a void inside of us. You feel like you're just not even really there, because this isn't you. This is the adaptive self. This is the fawner. This is the navigator, the people pleaser, the person that had to do whatever it took to be a chameleon to survive. Okay. What does this leave? Okay, what this leaves inside of me many times, or what it has left, is sadness and anxiety. It's like a permanent sadness and anxiety. Okay, and so then you go to the doctor and you decide to get help, and this is where things get complicated, because they want to say stuff like, oh, you have dysthemic depression, or you have generalized anxiety disorder. And then if you have both and you're cycling back in between, you know, then they're trying to label you with borderline personality disorder, or they're telling you have bipolar or dissociative disorder. And that's because the DSM, that you need to understand, there's one book, and it's been rewritten many times. They have these criteria X and Y, and if you fit in these criteria, they try to label you, and they try to do it right away because they need to get payment from insurance company. Okay, and these labels are not good, and I don't like these labels. Okay, are there genuine cases of BPD and bipolar and such? Of course there are, but many times we get misdiagnosed as CPTSD. And a lot of it is the forensic interviewing, the satirical questioning. They do not get a big enough history. They ask, you know, they do a GAD-7 or they do a Beck depression inventory, and okay, you're manic depressive, blah 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 blah, and you're out the office, right? And they need to go deeper, okay? And I'm just gonna say a word real quick about my protocol that I've created, and it's not to try to sell it. It's not to try to promote it. I just want you to be aware of it. Okay. I have written the Trauma Discovery Protocol, part of a system that I've authored, the Complex Trauma Profiling System. And the purpose of this is when you fill out this measurement, when you're done with this and you get your report, you're going to know all the way from what your temperament is, that God crafted you to be, all the way through your childhood trauma, your personality, your attachment style, your sensitivity scale, your whether you're an empath or not. It covers everything. Okay, so this protocol is going to help you understand, you know, why you do what you do in relationships. It's going to help you know what the hardwired parts of you are that can't change, which is temperament and epigenesis, which is 52% of us. Okay, but it's also going to help you understand the 48% that made you who you are through development of character and discipline and integrity and all the things based on childhood trauma, polytrauma, whatever. Okay, and so I'm just throwing that out there because I want you to understand that something does exist out here that's going to give you a realistic, real profile, and it's not going to fit in a DSM criteria. It's not going to put a label on you. It's going to help you understand, who am I? How did I get here? Why do I do the things that I do? And what do I need to do to heal? Okay? It took me 10 years to do it. And you know what? I had the questions myself. Many, many misdiagnoses all the way through therapy, through the Veterans Administration, through many, many drugs that I was put on. And guess what? Through God and through many, many years of studying and many, many years of praying, we developed the protocol. Okay? And so I just want you to understand that that is out there. Okay? And if you are curious about it, please message me and I'll tell you more about it. Okay? I just want you to know that that's available, so we can stop being the rat in the cage, running in the hamster wheel, and the same old same. It doesn't matter what doctor you go to, they keep saying the same thing. Okay? And the system is broken. We all know it. You wouldn't be looking at this video if you didn't know it, because you're suffering and you need some relief. Okay? So I'm throwing that out there because I want to talk about these hidden layers that we don't talk about, that we don't understand, and I want you to know that we can pluck these right out of you. Okay? The protocol can pluck these hidden layers right out of you and reveal it to you and help you understand what's going on. Okay? Because it can be quite confusing, because remember, we are hardwired to think the way that we do. We have been conditioned. We have been created by our parents and the environment and everything else to be who we are, and it's very, very hard to change, but we can change. The only thing that we cannot change is our temperament and our epigenesis, or our genetic structure. Okay? That's 52%, but when you understand it and you know what your needs are, it's much easier to deal with. Okay? But that leaves 48% of us that we have the power and control with the right tools to be able to change. And you talk about life changing, 100% life changing. Okay? It's not overnight. It takes some work, but it can happen. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wouldn't have. Okay? Many of my colleagues and friends, unfortunately, have self-deleted, and they are not here, or they are in bad shape with substance misuse or something. Okay? So there are miracles. I had a psychologist 20 years ago tell me that I was a walking miracle. So we need to understand that you can heal, you can get past this. Okay? So enough of me on my high horse. Let's look at these layers. Okay? We often talk about trauma as one loud event. Okay? This is the whole PTSD thing. It's usually generated over one incident, and all of the treatment models, unfortunately, are trying to get you past this one event. But you know, this is few and far between. Many of us have polytrauma. We have several instances of trauma, and we need to understand that that's, you know, part of this, and we need to understand that. Okay? So we have this sense of hollowness and anxiety. There's an invisible echo of the past that won't let you go. Okay? We often talk about this trauma as a single event, but the truth is that with complex trauma, it's different. Okay? It's a quiet, slow erosion of the self, and this is built from 1,000 tiny cuts over time. Okay? It happens gradually over time with many, many, many instances. Okay? In particular, when we're children and we're facing abuse, it starts off with our source of danger also being our source of survival. Okay? So this starts that complex part of our journey, because you don't know how to adapt. How do you see a source of comfort and support and nurture as also the source of danger and hurt and pain? And so this begins the cascade that gets us where we are as adults. This is what starts our unhealthy attachments. This is what starts our disassociation. All of these things start from this. Okay? And this is generally going to be, you know, 100% from your parent or whatever caregiver you had as a child. Okay? They, you know, and we're just scratching the surface today. Okay? I want you to know that. That's why this channel is going to continue, and we're going to keep talking about it, because we're only talking about a few things today, but they have to come out into the open and we have to discuss it. Okay? I want you to know what is going on inside of you. Okay? As best I can today. So the first one I want to go over is the shattered sense of health of self. I believe that there's actually even a book out there called The Shattered Self that's about the inner child and how your identity gets all screwed up from abuse, and that may be a good resource for you. It may not. I seem to remember reading that probably in the last 20 years in my studies, but honestly, it doesn't really stand out. So it may not have been something that helped me, but I do think that there is a book called that. So we're going to go ahead and peel back some of these hidden layers to show you exactly what's going on inside today, okay? So the very foundation for a person without complex trauma is that their sense of I am is very solid. It's a core that's built from the inside out. They know what they like, what they believe, and who they are, okay? Even when they're alone, they have a good sense of identity, okay? It's a solid core self, right? So this is somebody that's going to have a secure attachment. They feel like they've got it all together. They're resilient. Things don't bother them as much, okay? Quite honestly, I've only met maybe one or two individuals in my lifetime that had these qualities, okay? So I'm going to say that it's pretty rare. I think that there's a much higher instance of most of us going through some sort of trauma as a child, some worse than others, but trauma is trauma, and there's no comparison. Your trauma is yours and you own it, and whatever it's done to you, that's a personal journey for you. So there's no judgment here or comparison or tit for tat or any of that crap, because trauma is trauma. For someone with complex trauma, okay, this core was never even allowed to form in us, okay? We don't even know what it is, okay? That's why I harp on temperament so much in my therapy, in my system that I use to help people, because we need to understand who we are, and who we really are is who God crafted us to be. The soul, the footprint that was in us before life started eroding and destroying us with 1,000 cuts. Okay, we have to understand what that core person is so that we can grow out of that, so to speak. Okay, so basically our identity was very fluid. Okay, like I said before, we became kind of a chameleon. Our identity was our survival structure. We learned to be whatever people around us needed us to be. Quiet when they were angry, happy when they were pleased, invisible when they were dangerous. This leads to that whole social chameleon thing. You can effortlessly, many times, blend into any group. You can learn how to mirror their opinions, their humor, their energy, whatever you need to do to survive. Okay? People might even see you as incredibly agreeable and easygoing, but this performance, I'm here to tell you, it's exhausting. And I've learned that the older I get, the less tolerance I've had for that. And so the real me has been slowly coming out. And you also get to this point, believe it or not, whether it's resiliency or you just don't have the threshold. It's a blessing and a curse, but I've also gotten to this point where I'm starting to really not care. This is who I am. You don't like me, then just get the hell out of my face. You know what I mean? It's gotten to that point where I call it extreme exhaustion, maybe. It's a mixture of creating healthy boundaries in a healing way, but also just not having the threshold anymore to be able to worry about what people think. Okay, so you can get to this point and you can get to it in a healthy way. I don't want you to, this isn't dissociation. This isn't, I'm checking out on life, or, I'm just going to go over there and be mute and just melt away into a corner. It's more healthy. It's about you learning how to think about what matters and worry about what matters. Okay, those that have earned a place for your trust and have become a part of your life, and want to embrace and love and care about the real you. These are the people that we want to be around and want to make happy and want to share life with, and less of the surfacey trying to fit in and all of these things kind of thing. Okay, so you can get to that point, because before we get to that point, we literally can look in the mirror and we have a feeling of disconnection because we don't even know who the person staring back is. Okay, we have a resume of experience. Okay, this is much more important. I think of curriculum vitae and all these things that we have to use when we're trying to prove that we're qualified to do something, but we negate the fact that despite doctoral degrees and all of these certifications and all this crap that mankind says that I have to do what I do, the utmost thing that makes me good at this is my own experience. I've lived it. I've lived it for 50 years. I've been through all kinds of trauma. And so this is your resume. Your resume is experience. Okay, so when people are telling you things that are intimate and dark and scary and hurtful, you can look at them with genuine empathy and understand, because you've walked and you've experienced those raw emotions and that fear and that gut-wrenching feeling. You know what you're talking about, okay, because you've been there, and you can offer them that peace and that comfort to know that someone finally understands you. It's quite a gift. So often what happens, we find ourselves in jobs, relationships, or even cities that we don't actually even like, right? With no idea how we even ended up there half the time, okay? It's because yourself was never the one making the decision, okay? Number two, we want to talk about the storm of emotional dysregulation, okay? We've talked about emotional maturity and emotional dysregulation before, so we're just going to touch on that, okay? Imagine that your emotions are supposed to work like a thermostat, okay? Gently adjusting to keep the temperature comfortable, right? That's how you adjust a thermostat in your home or in your car or whatever, okay? For someone with CPTSD, that thermostat is completely broken, okay? It's more like a faulty light switch, okay, than it is a thermostat. It's either going to be completely off or it's going to be overwhelmingly on. And that's how our emotions tend to go. There is no in between, unfortunately. This is why a tiny, insignificant event, this can send us spiraling, okay? A slightly critical email, maybe, or someone cutting us off in traffic, or it could be a friend canceling plans with you at the last minute. It can cause a tidal wave of shame, guilt, anger, despair, okay? And it feels completely out of proportion to the event, okay? You go from 0 to 100 in seconds. This isn't you being dramatic, okay? It's your brain's alarm system. This is what we need to understand. We tend to be around narcissistic people. We've talked about this in the last video. We end up with people that exploit us or abuse us. Okay, so we continue that abusive pattern. And so we're not getting any slack. We're not getting any grace from anybody. So now we're drama queens and we're the problem. And then we talk about reactive abuse and all of these things that go into play because of this. Okay, but we need to understand we're hardwired. Okay, we have an alarm system in our brain, the amygdala, and it is stuck in the on position. Okay, so we are producing adrenal hormones, stress hormones. We are in fight, flight, freeze or fawn all the time. Okay, and this is not your fault. Okay, it is not fair to you or to me or to anyone with CPTSD to sit here and have shame and guilt over how we behave sometimes. Okay, until you understand what I'm telling you and what's going on in your body, we don't even know how to start healing from this or how to start being better, okay? Now, once you know, if you choose to not take a healing journey, or you choose not to get better, or you choose not to do the work, once you understand what's going on, then there might be some accountability there for you, okay? But until that time happens, it is completely unweighted and unfair for anyone to persecute you for doing what you've been hardwired to do, what you've been crafted to do, okay? This system in your brain learned a long time ago that tiny signs could predict huge danger, okay? We adapted. We had to improvise, adapt, overcome, just like the Marine Corps says, okay, because we had to survive, okay? So we learned the subtle cues before our parent or our caregiver was going to do something horrific, okay? And that follows us into life, and so those same behaviors in other people are going to cause us to react a certain way, okay? So our amygdala and our nervous system is screaming fire at the first puff of smoke, okay? The other side of this is the off switch, okay? And this is where we can become emotionally numb and we can dissociate, okay? And you do a lot of disassociation and repressing as a child because that's how you cope. And there's a lot of room in the brain. You have a developing brain. There's all this gray matter. There's lots of storage for you to push this stuff away and to keep going so that you can dissociate and survive. We become adults. There's less room in the end. Sometimes there's no room in the end. And things change, okay? And like the analogy that I've used before, you pour coffee, cream, and sugar into a cup. You keep pouring coffee. It starts coming out, and I can't control if it's sugar, cream, or coffee coming out of that cup. And that's what eventually happens, is that we get to the point where there's no more threshold for it, okay? So sometimes, with this disassociation, what happens is, you might be like at a wedding or a funeral, or there may be some event that should provoke some sort of strong feelings, and you feel blank, detached, like you're watching a movie of your own life, okay? And this is a survival mechanism. This is what we learned as a child when we were being abused. So we had to dissociate, we had to escape it, and we don't have the threshold right now to deal with grief or sadness or any of these things, okay? And I've been there many, many times. And I have avoided, not even watching, movies. Like I can't even watch Christmas Hallmark movies because I don't want all of that, blah, 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 all that love and stuff, because in my world, it's not real. It's just something that's a fairy tale, right? So we get to that point where we avoid these things. So your brain just unplugs. Sometimes, also, like in my childhood, feelings were a threat to your survival. If I was angry or sad or cried or any of those things, I was in an environment where that was a no-no, especially as a young man or as a boy. I had a very domineering parent that, felt that was weakness. Okay, so those became an enemy, those feelings. So you had to learn to shut them off and to put them away. So now your body has learned to treat all feelings as the enemy. I mean, this is how we're getting that wiring. Okay. The third layer is, we've talked about this many times, relationships. Okay, relationships are perhaps the most painful and confusing area of someone with complex traumatic stress. Okay, you crave connection more than anything. Affirmation, love, affection, all the things that we were crafted by God to receive, because he wants us to have a personal relationship with him and to be emotional and to be able to love. And so we are created and crafted to have these things in us. And so we want this more than anything, but we are also terrified of it. Okay? We're not just terrified because our source of comfort was also our source of danger as a child, but we are also terrified of the loss of these things. We want it so desperately that we are terrified that if we get it and then we lose it, we can never survive the loss. Okay? And many times this is what has hurt us the most in our life with our caregivers and whoever else, was that desperate need for love, nurturing, affection, and the lack thereof. Or in some cases, like my childhood, you would get a mixture. You would get that sometimes, and then that same person, depending on whether they were drinking or had a bad day at work or whatever, their switch flips, and instead of getting a hug, you're getting hit. And so this gets us all very, very confused, okay? So what happens? We end up being repeatedly drawn in relationships to people who are emotionally unavailable, or they're critical, or they're unpredictable, right? This is a pattern. This isn't because we're broken or we love pain. We're not sadomasochists, okay? It's because it feels familiar. This is what we're familiar with, okay? And sometimes cognitive emotive dissonance, or basically the gut feeling of discomfort, happens when we're trying to make a positive change. We're so used to this treatment and so used to this kind of relationship and being treated this way that when we get to a point of getting in a healthy relationship, or somebody finally treats us right, we don't know what to do. Our nervous system was wired for chaos. Okay, so stability and kindness can feel unsettling, even boring sometimes for us, right? So, a kind and reliable partner might make you feel suspicious. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop for them to show their true colors, right? They're eventually going to hurt me, and this has a lot to do with the outer critic, which we've talked about before. So a lot of times we unconsciously push them away, and we sabotage the very safety that we crave. Okay. Alternately, you become a fawner, and you're a people pleaser, and you just lose yourself completely, right? You're losing yourself in the other person. Your whole identity becomes, abandoning your own needs, your own hobbies, any friends or anything else, because you think that's what they want. And this is when we see the empath ending up with a narcissist many times, and that is fueling the narcissist, which is giving them everything that they need, and it's just a cascade of very unfortunate events in the relationship. And our fear of abandonment is so powerful that you would rather erase your own identity and your own self than to risk being left alone. And this is how it is. I've been there and I've done that, and I know it's painful to talk about this, but this is what happens. At the core of this is our damaged attachment system, which we've talked about in other videos. If you want to get more detail on, anxious, avoidant, disorganized attachment, we have some videos on that. I encourage you to check them out. And this is the blueprint for, our relationships. We never had a healthy relationship blueprint to follow, so we don't really know what it is. So we have to learn. We're trying to heal a wound with the same kind of blade that cut us, if that makes sense to you. Okay. We also, the fourth thing is we have a warped blueprint of the world. Imagine you were given a set of glasses as a child and you've worn them your entire life, but these glasses are distorted. Okay. They make straight lines look crooked, bright lines look gray. You wouldn't know any different. Okay. You just assume that that's how the world is. Complex trauma gives you a set of distorted glasses. We don't see the world the same way as everybody else does. Okay, it warps our core beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world. That's where that inner and outer critic come into play. Our internal belief system might sound something like this. I am fundamentally flawed. I am not lovable. I am not worthy of love. I am broken. I am worthless. Okay, these are, and a lot of times these are what we heard as a child. I know that I did. Okay, so we start developing that false self based on the chaos. We also at the same place have the outer critic telling us that people can't be trusted, the world can't be trusted, nothing is safe. So this is a hell of a struggle that we're going through, okay, with these glasses that we've put on that are distorted. So then when something good does happen, we may dismiss it as a fluke. This is a cognitive error that we do. It's called discounting the positive. When something bad happens, it just reinforces the evidence that we already know, right? It confirms that people are bad, the world is bad. The problem is that the results are flawed because we are instinctively, based on familiarity, putting ourselves around danger and around people that are going to do that. Okay, so this would be like doing a double-blind study for a medication, and you're only using people that are going to have an allergic reaction, that are going to have allergic reaction. Okay, so that's not really realistic. Okay, we get very hypervigilant, and we start reading into everything as a threat, right? We read into every word in a text message. We analyze every look. You're waiting for the inevitable betrayal or disaster. This is what happens, okay? It's mentally and physically exhausting. And if you're empathic, like I am what's called a pure empath. We're also feeling it, and it's not definitive. So this is what really gets tricky, is that we don't know why the person is anxious. We don't know why the other person is angry. We just feel the anxiety and the anger. And so with CPTSD, what am I going to do? I'm going to internalize that. I'm automatically thinking that whatever they're feeling is because of me, right? They're angry at me, or they're disappointed in me, or I'm the one causing whatever they're feeling. Okay, so this, here comes that anxiety, that guilt, and that shame again. Okay, and it's really, really difficult. Okay, and so we have to learn how to get clarity and ask people around us, hey, I can feel that your anxiety. What are you anxious about? We need to start learning that it's okay to get clarity and to try to get them to tell us what's wrong. If you're with a narcissistic person or you're with an abusive person, they're going to exploit that, and they're not going to tell you. They're going to torture you, knowing that they're bothering you with whatever they're feeling. Okay, they will intentionally do silent treatment, or we've talked about these other areas of abuse. So I'm just telling you, if you're trying to get clarity and you're not getting it, it's because you're in an abusive relationship. Okay, and we need to consider that. The lens through which we see the world was forged in fire. So everything everything basically looks like it's burning. And that's just the way that it is. The fifth thing is the body becomes a prison. We think of trauma as just a mental issue, a problem of memories and thoughts, but that's only half of it, okay? We need to understand, one of the most famous books out there, one of my favorites, is Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who really started studying developmental trauma, and his book is called The Body Keeps the Score, and it does. This is a body-mind-spirit connection, and everything feels it, okay? The body is holding on to this trauma just as tightly and doesn't want to move on, okay? Your mind may try to forget, but your body is keeping the score, okay? This is why so many survivors of complex trauma suffer from chronic diseases. It's all comorbid, it's all connected, okay? Physical issues that doctors struggle to even diagnose, okay? Unrelenting fatigue, sleep doesn't fix. We have digestive problems like IBS, okay? Unexplained aches and pains, especially in the back, neck, and shoulders, because this is where we hang our stress, okay? Chronic headaches, migraines, even autoimmune disorders, okay? We've even tied all of this, we've talked about it in the last video, to the big killers, heart disease, diabetes. It's all about inflammation. So we need to understand this is a body, mind, spirit connection, okay? Our nervous system is locked in a permanent state of fight, flight, freeze, okay? The freeze response is especially important in complex trauma. When you couldn't fight back and you couldn't run away, that trapped survival energy gets stored in your muscles, your tissues, and your organs, okay? Because you freeze, because you just give up and you surrender, okay? You might feel a constant low-level tension in your body, like your muscles are always braced for impact. You might feel disconnected from your body, as if you're just, a head carrying around a machine or like a robot. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget, and it speaks a language of pain. The sixth thing is that broken timeline, which we've talked about before. We have a very hard time with concept of time. For most people, time will travel in a straight line with the past behind them. The present is here and the future is ahead. For someone with complex trauma, we have a hard time with this. It's a tangled mess. The past isn't in the past, okay? It's a living, breathing thing that is constantly in the present, affecting us, okay? An emotional flashback doesn't feel like the past. It feels like right now. And we've talked about this in other videos, okay? We are in this and we're feeling the same helplessness, the shame, the terror, all of the same feelings we did when it happened to us, okay? So this feels very present. It does not feel like it's in the past. Our logical brain, our empirical brain, knows that we're a grown adult, and we can try to convince ourselves of that. But the emotional brain is convinced that you are still that powerless child. And that's what we need to understand, that we got to get the left brain and the right brain on board with one another. The empirical brain and the visceral brain, we have to get them all on board fighting the same battle, okay? So this makes it almost impossible to think of a future, right? Because the only future you see is more pain. People want to call us pessimistic, they want to call us negative and all of these things and make us feel even worse about ourselves. But quite frankly, it's very, very hard for us to see any future. It's very, very hard just to go day to day. Sometimes, depending on the environment you're in, it's hard to survive the next hour. I understand this. The idea of goals or careers or a stable future is going to feel more like a fantasy, something for other people, not for us. we live in a state of foreshortened future, unable to see a path forward because we're still navigating the minefield of the past. That's why you might struggle with motivation and consistency. It's not because you're lazy. Most of us are very, very hard workers. It's really hard to build something new on a foundation that feels like it could crumble at any moment. So keep that in mind. The constant state of survival mode that we've been in, it consumes all of our energy. You can't build a future when you are still fighting a war in the past. That's just the way that it is. Your focus on getting through today because of a long tomorrow was never a guarantee. The seventh thing is our relentless inner critic, which we have a whole video on this, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but we need to understand that this is extreme low self-esteem. This inner critic that grows from complex trauma is something else entirely than just low self-esteem. It is a voice of pure venom and contempt that lives within us, okay? It's not just a voice that says you made a mistake. It's a voice that says you are a mistake. The voice is an internalized perpetrator. It is the echo of the critical, shaming, or abusive voices from our past. Our brain, in a twisted attempt to protect ourselves, adopted the voice as its own. And the logic in our brain was, as it's trying to protect us, is that if I can criticize myself first, if I criticize myself first, okay, if I can punish myself harder than any other person could, then maybe I can anticipate the danger and stay safe. So now that voice runs on a constant loop in your brain. It attacks you for every tiny error. It tells you you're worthless, you're stupid, you're unlovable, and that you're a burden to others. It isolates you with that toxic shame, a feeling that you are fundamentally bad to your core. This voice is the reason you can receive 1,000 compliments and you can receive one insult, and all you can think about is that one insult. Those 1,000 compliments don't even matter. And we talked about it earlier in the video. A lot of times those 1,000 compliments don't even resonate with you because they feel uncomfortable. Because you want that affirmation so bad, but at the same time, it's so uncomfortable when you get it. It's not believable. The person who hurt us, or people or individuals permanent that have hurt us, might even be gone. But guess what? We've allowed them to live inside our head rent-free. Seeing them written out of a mental list isn't meant to make you feel hopeless. It's meant to make you feel seen. This is not a personal failure. It is a map of an injury. It is the logical result of an unbearable experience. So with ending this video, let's talk about this. Okay? Healing is not about erasing the past, but about learning to live with the echoes of the past, okay? Slowly turning down their volume in your mind. And for the first time, learning how to listen to your own voice, who you really are. I hope that this video resonates with you today. Some of it may be painful. You may be sitting here in tears. You may be sitting here thinking, wow, this is me. I want you to understand you're not alone, okay? There's many of us out here. We have an intimate understanding of this, and we need to stick together, and we need to lift each other up. Number one, there's a God in heaven who crafted you, who has been with you every second since you were in your womb, and he has been with you every single moment of every single trauma in your life. He's been there the whole time. So he understands us better than any human being ever could. So I lean very heavily on him, because I know that he's consistent, and I know that he tells the truth, and he will never lie, and he keeps his promises, and that he understands me inside and out, and if anyone can heal me, it's him, okay? But I also lean heavily on experience and others like you. All of us together have different perspectives, and we can identify with each other, and we can shoulder the load together. I want this message today, this video, to be a message of hope. I want you to understand that although these things are very painful, it's hard to talk about, it's hard to realize that we're living this way, we can absolutely take a hold of our lives, and we can change, and we can heal. God bless. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time.